So, hi guys. Lorenzo and I are back with our episode number 2, and we have really enjoyed the feedback that we've received on our first episode, and we are still working through the process. It's going to get better and better with time. So, for this episode, we are focusing on a new, different direct-to-consumer brand called Nama Juicer, and we will talk about what the product does. I'll talk about my part. Lorenz is going to talk about his part. And we hope to spark some new insights and ideas in your brain. And again, like always, these episodes are supposed to be collaborative. So please do write comments. We look at every comment, we respond to every comment, and let's kind of make this more interactive. Let's build a community around this type of solving marketing problems. And we're trying, and just to be clear, Nama Juicer is an excellent website. They have incredible assets. We are not trying to make this presentation to talk about hey, this was bad or they overlooked this. We're basically saying these are all incredible things. What could we have done to make it even better? It's all about building up these brands. And we hope that some of these lessons will apply to the work that you're working on your own brands. So, hi, Lorenzo, how are you doing?
Good. I'm excited about this product actually. I would say I'm an ex-juicer, unfortunately ex. So I'm excited about this product a lot. I think during the research we'll touch base on that in a little bit. But during the research, there are a lot of things that came up that I actually saw myself, developing a lot of empathy because. Again, as an ex-juicer, I don't even know if it's a term ex-juicer. So yeah, exciting to get started, man.
Excellent. So what I'm going to do is resize these windows. I'm going to move this on the right-hand side. Okay. So the first thing that we want to cover is my part, which is the deconstruction. And so I want to talk a little bit. We covered deconstruction in the previous episode. I'm going to cover it again for those of you who did not watch the previous episode. So we have a very specific process for deconstruction. And if you notice in this document, you'll notice that we have annotated all the way down to number 87 or number 88. And this is very, very intentional. I'll give you a simple example. So for example, when I was annotating 87, I came here and I said, oh, I'm done. And then I suddenly realized that, oh, there's a sort function over here, and you can sort it based on different criteria. Now, why does this matter? Well, the thing is that this micro element we could have made it, if we thought it's an important conversion driver, then we could have maybe done a design treatment to it, or maybe we could have done something to get more people to interact with. We could also have done event tracking. Lorenzo loves this kind of tracking, where you can track to see if people are participating in it. And then more importantly, you can actually look at the correlation between people that do use it and conversion rates. And this is a simple, will I go back to the client and say, I have an idea for just point number 88? No, that's not the point. These are micro improvements, but all of these things matter. And if I did not annotate this, I would not have noticed. I would probably have missed this point. I would have started reading Murray's review, and our brains are like, beagles on steroids. We get very quickly lost. So this annotation system, it actually forces me to slow down and think about warranty, slow down and think about return policy. And I'll give you one, I don't want to digress too much, but I'll give you a simple example of how annotations work. A lot of times conversion optimizers are focused on these big, audacious test ideas. I'll give you a simple example of how you can use this. You can actually run a test. And again, I'm not talking about a test. I'm talking about a micro improvement. So an example of a micro improvement could be, you might actually change this headline. That's one example. But another thing you could do is you could actually just change the order of these elements. You might want to show return policy as number 1. And that kind of thing, only comes when you actually have accountability for each of these points. That's why these annotations matter so much. So what we've done is we've annotated the whole document. When Lorenzo gets to his customer review mining part, he might want to use this again. But for the purpose of this presentation, I'm only limiting myself to 2 topics that I'm going to cover related to annotation, because for this episode, I want to talk about a new idea called selling angles. So let's start off with the two annotations that I have. The first one is we know from eye tracking studies, and we know from heat maps, and we know for user recordings that users are disproportionately drawn to images. And this kind of makes sense when you come to a website and you're seeing a product for the first time. When you go car shopping, when you go to a car dealership to look at a car, you don't read the manual first. You actually look at the car. You spend time walking around the car, looking at the car, paying attention to all the features of the car. It's no different from what someone will do when they come to this page. And so what happens is that people are going to be disproportionately drawn to all the images that they have because they want to see how this juicer looks. They want to imagine this juicer as being a part of their life. The problem for a copywriter is that it's almost like this is a black hole of attention. It's sucking in so much attention that's actually taking attention away from my sales pitch. And so how do we fix this? One simple solution, and this is a genius idea, is to just remove all the images, which is a geniusly stupid idea. But another solution is what we call a picture story, which means you convert the image into an image plus a sales pitch. And so how do we do that? So I'm going to show you a simple example. So this is the image over here. And the way we want to make this a picture story is, I'll just show you, where is it? Okay, so make first one. Okay, so forget the first one. I'll actually show you the next one. I'm actually going to open the live page. So on the live page, you notice over here, this is this, let me see. So this is the third image. And so how would I convert this into a picture story? So we'll keep the image the same. We have this real estate over here to play with. And for this example, I came up with this idea that says that conference call starts in the next 12 minutes. I'll be ready for it. So one of the things we're trying to communicate through this is that this juicer can juice very quickly. And I wanted to use this image because it kind of shows a lady who's maybe like in the morning and she's like trying to like make a juice, and I want to kind of relate, because typically people juice in the morning, and usually our professional days are starting. We're working from home these days. And so it's very conceivable that you might have a Zoom call or something like that. And I just wanted to kind of use this as an opportunity to kind of show an image, but also make a sales pitch to reinforce what this product does. So that's one example of a picture story. I'm just going to end there. The next thing I want to point out is we know that the images draw a lot of attention, but of course, headlines also draw a lot of attention. So our idea is point number 6 over here. So we said make cold press a link. And what happens is when you click on it, we will show a light box where we will explain what cold pressing is all about. Now, I have 2 comments over here. The first one is I want you to think about who is going to be clicking on cold press. And my answer is it's someone who is curious to learn more about cold pressing. If someone already knows what cold pressing is, if someone is already a juicer, they will absolutely ignore that link. And the idea here is to create a mechanism. Remember, we are trying to convert people that have some kind of anxiety. Those are my best friends. People with anxiety are my best friends. So if someone has anxiety about cold press, right now there is no mechanism for them to actually explore this further. They have to rely on the fact that this might be explained in more detail in the description, which they'll have to find. But by making it a link, you're giving them a direct shortcut to explaining to them what cold press technology means. What is cold pressing? It's very useful for people who are new to juicing, so early stage buyers, and for people who are very familiar with juicing, who have maybe bought a Nama juicer before, or people like Lorenzo who've done juicing in the past and are looking for a new model, would not need to know what a cold press technology is, and they'll ignore it completely. So those are 2 points I want to make in the annotation. Now I want to talk to you about hidden assets. One of the things that's really important, if you look, this is a really important point. If you look through this entire annotation, you'll notice that there are 88 annotations and they've been put in a hierarchy. The hierarchy is that usually I can already tell you right now that the annotations that have a lower number have more visual prominence versus annotations that have a higher number. This is just how our brain processes information. This is the reason why in newspapers, we have a inverse pyramid idea. They show the most important stuff higher in the article because they know that if someone quits 50% through, at least they've got the bulk of it. They don't want to rely on someone reading all the way to the bottom. So now the question becomes, is that how do we know that this retailer has organized hierarchy from a visual hierarchy if they've organized these hidden assets in the right sequence? The answer is we just don't know. And so what deconstruction forces us to do is it forces us to actually evaluate if that's the case or not. And one of the things that I discovered when I was going through this thing was over here, they have a video. It says watch product overview video. Lorenzo is going to have some comments about the video as well, but I'll tell you what my insight was, that in the video, first of all, this is number 14, which means in terms of hierarchy, it's slightly lower than these elements, which is fine. That's not a problem. But the thing is that in the video itself, there were lots of interesting details that were communicated that I felt were lost if you didn't watch the video. And therefore, many people would not have noticed those elements. And that's why I'm categorizing them as a hidden asset. There are multiple hidden assets on this page. And we're not trying to, so you need to really pay attention to what is a hidden asset. The simple definition of a hidden asset is something that has a high conversion catalyst, but low visibility. So anything in your sales pitch that it has a nice effect on conversion rates, but is also seen by a smaller percentage of people, then that is what we call a hidden asset. So one of the hidden assets we discovered here was in this video. So I'm just going to pause right now. Lorenzo, any questions so far? Does this make sense? I want to make sure that I'm not going too fast.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the video is also that they have the same video in actually the product images, but it doesn't look like a video.
That's right.
So yeah. I have to think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I should actually open that up because I should open that point because that is something that I also noticed. So guys, what Lorenzo is saying is that, let me just go back a little bit.
Yeah, okay. The second tile below the main
so image. This is the video.
Yeah,
but it's not very clear when you're on the first tile, because remember 90% of people are going to come at the first tile and they will now if they click on this they'll discover it's a video. But what would have happened if we would have actually made this more, because for someone looking for a video, we could have made this more prominent by doing this. I totally agree, Lorenzo. Okay. Do you want to talk about your?
Yeah, I was not gonna talk about a few things. I would say above the fold. So if you scroll the screenshot all the way up, yeah. So a few things that I noticed are on the top. There's the what I call the hello bar that says check out our latest recipes. And to me, that's kind of like strange that they have that section, because the user comes to check out a specific thing, the juicer. Right. And now you're actually pushing them out to check out recipes. But the intent is to look for a juicer, not to find recipes. So I would actually look at their Google Analytics to understand how many people are actually clicking on the hello bar, how many are actually exiting and going to check out recipes, and if these people are coming back or not.
And Lorenzo, you bring up a really good point, because I would argue that even if they don't click on it, it still is an element of cognitive load. Because they have to read it, they have to analyze it and say, this is irrelevant to me. Those 3 steps take 0.004% of my attention.
Yeah, 100%. Then the other thing that maybe there was another thing I wanted to mention, which is something that you saw before, which is the pop-up. As soon as you land on the page, there's the pop-up that appears, and the pop-up. I don't know if you want to show it. If you reload, if you refresh the page.
Yeah. Just a second.
The pop-up is can definitely be improved.
Hopefully it'll come. With my luck, it won't show up again, but let me see if I can open a new browser or something.
Might take a few seconds.
Oh, I see it. Sorry, right here.
There you go. So I would say, first of all, join the Nama community is kind of like not clear. because like what community, right? Like it's not very clear. Like this is a juicing product.
I
What
love it.
community are we talking about?
I love it.
The other thing was like, oh, why
There's no
3
benefit. There's
fields?
no benefit.
Yeah, I had no benefits. No, that doesn't give me a reason to sign up. The other thing is like, you know, the 3 fields, first name, last name, and email. I wonder why they ask for first name and last name. Why last name? Why is that important? Also, like the call to action is kind of hidden, sign up. And then also like the image is quite poor, like just like they look like flowers. It doesn't really relate. And then one thing that I noticed is also that I signed up. So I put my first name, my last name in my email. And I noticed that there's no goal tracking in Google Analytics that tracks how many people actually sign up to the newsletter. So, you know, I would definitely implement a goal in Google Analytics. So now you're actually tracking how many people are signing up.
Yeah, they could even do like a kind of a social proof thing where they could say like, 150 people, 164 people sign up every week or something. So I not only do I know that 50,000 people have signed up 10 years ago,
Yep.
I also know that it's happening right now because I want to join the community now. I want to join these other people. I'm trying to lose weight. I want to meet those other 156 people.
Yep.
Right. So
and then I have a few things about the images.
you
The
want me to
product
keep this
images.
up? You want me to keep this
Yeah,
open?
yeah, just keep it open. It's fine. Because I like if you guys look at the screenshot on the left, the interesting thing. Actually, no. Close the pop-up.
Okay.
So let's talk about the images from here. So one thing that I noticed is that the images are not clickable. So if you click on it, you can't zoom in. So actually, Namawell has Hotjar installed. So what I would do is I would look at
Rage clicks.
Yeah, exactly, to see if actually people are trying to. So there is 2 things I would look at. First of all, as you said, rage click. So Hotjar has a feature called session recordings, where you can see the actual people navigating around the website. And within that feature, you can filter by rage clicks. Rage clicks are basically like people that go like this. In this case, it's tap because it's obviously like mobile. And it's a rage click because it's like going like this to see if they can zoom in. The other thing I would look at is still in Hotjar, I would look at click maps to see if people are actually clicking on the main image to try to zoom in. I would actually argue that there is a third data point that they could be looking at, which is like to see like live chat or kind of like customer support tickets. If people are asking to send them images of how the product looks like all zoomed in. And so that's kind of interesting to me, especially on mobile. The image might be a little bit too small, and maybe people want to see like little details of what the product looks like, especially like small details of the accessories and so on, and there's no way to see it. So
and I would can you see my screen? Yeah.
Yes,
you see how even they've wasted white space over here.
Yeah.
I would that's this, there's no need for it, spread it out all the way through, because like we said, the visual for people that are new to juicing, that they want to see the product, and even the product there's so much in the background. So maybe I would even crop it further. Simple
Yep.
things like these are what we call micro improvements. We're not saying that these changes will magically improve conversion rate to 20%, but we're saying like if you combine all of these 50 changes, you're going to get a 20% improvement. And I think sometimes CRO people are too focused on massive insights, and we miss these like very obvious, simple things that are not very complicated to do and can deliver a useful reduction in friction.
Yeah, and also from a tracking perspective, they're not really tracking clicks on the product images either. So that's another missed opportunity to see where people are clicking the most. Same for video. I would totally like implement event tracking to understand, how many people are actually playing the video, how many people are actually stopping the video, how many minutes people are, percentage standpoint, how many minutes people are actually watching the video. Then, I mean, there's few things about the images also. Like if you click on a image tiles, yeah, go to the next one also. One thing that I notice is that the image doesn't have context. So for example, if you go into my research document, I want to explain a little bit about what I did here. So basically, my approach when it comes to conversion rate optimization is to actually look at a lot of different data points, both quantitative and qualitative. Obviously, in this case, we don't have access to Nama's qualitative data because they're not our clients. So that what I've done is I basically mined the reviews of the product. And what I mean by that, I didn't use any AI tool. This is just me going into every single review and, with my CRO hat, understand what the review is about. And then what I've done is I bucket each review in different themes. And you can see the themes, in the section below. But there's a theme called scroll all the way on the right.
Switch from?
No, it's called, one second. It's called use cases.
Just a second. Maybe it's because my screen. Oh yeah, no, I see it. I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to. Okay, there we go. We don't prepare for these calls. We intentionally try to keep the two CROs separate. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so what this theme is about, I call the use case. Maybe it should be called in another way. But basically, this is the list of all the fruits and veggies that are actually being mentioned.
Oh my God.
In the reviews.
It's the ultimate. I mean, I look at this stuff, Lorenzo, and I kind of think to myself, the answer is already there. The customers have given us the answers. I love it.
Exactly. And to me, it's interesting because it tells us exactly what customers are actually using, right? And it's also like few of the anxieties that people have had is like, oh, I wonder if it works for this type of veggies or for this type of fruit. So there's two things I would do with product images. First of all, I would actually show product images for different type of fruits and veggies. But the other thing is there's if you go back to the research doc.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
The reviews mining doc. The number 4 is nut milk. Okay. And that is also like, you wouldn't expect that with a juicer, you could make nut milk. And there's an image, if you go back to the product page.
That's funny. I saw that just this morning. Yeah. And I was still unclear. I was like, is it just a juice is it milk on the left, or is the machine making the milk?
Exactly. And the reason why they show this image, and they don't explain it well, they should explain better. First of all, they should mention that it's nut milk. Or yeah, it's nut milk, right?
Almond milk.
Almond milk. So you're actually calling out what the image is about.
Absolutely.
The second thing is, in the product, there is a strainer for the milk. And it's actually like, because basically like the juicer can be used for juicing, to make milk, and to make sorbet, which is also the next image, right?
Yes.
It's another thing. Yeah, there you go. So I would use some copy in the image to actually explain what the image is about, just to call out things that you want the customer to focus on.
And Lorenzo, just look at this. So this is a really good point, right? So over here, they say nut milk, and it's a link. Mm-hmm. And let me ask you this question. Who would click this? someone who's interested in nut milk.
Yep.
When you click on this, all they do is they reload the page. So
Yeah.
not only are you not answering my question, you're insulting my intelligence. And again, we want to be very careful. We're not trying to find faults with the website. We're just, I just noticed this. I'm just sharing it. But these are kind of the oversights we all. I want to actually, Lorenzo, I want to have 1 second. I want to actually mention something here because it kind of ties in with something that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. So this is beautiful. This is completely out of context. I did not know what this meant. And I think I would convert this into an infographic, and I would kind of show an arrow pointing towards nuts in, milk out. And also I would use it as a picture story to make a benefit statement, because my wife also drinks almond milk. And it costs, $2.50 or $3 a bottle or something. Maybe we could have a benefit statement saying that make your milk at home, save 35% on. There's no state. I'm assuming that the only reason someone would make nut milk is because it's cheaper than buying from the store. But there's nothing over here that actually says that, customers save 35% on nut milk. And so this is an example where you can do so much more with the image.
There's one last thing I want to talk about the product images. If you go back to the research document, there is a section called persona. Basically here, what I've done, it's a theme called persona. I'm not a huge fan of the term persona. But I basically bucket in here the kind of like different personas that self-identified in the reviews. And look at the second one. It says, my kids, grandkids, juice, right? And, this is interesting to me because I wonder how many people that buy it also have their kids using it, right? But I haven't seen a lot of images. I haven't seen any image in the product image section showing kids. And I would actually add an image of kids using it, because this actually uses the mirroring effect, where if you see that also kids can use it, you're more like, oh, wow, it's almost like an implied message that says, oh, wow, okay, even my kids can use it. That's great. It's kids safe, basically. That's all I got for the product images, Rishi.
Yeah, so that's a really good point about that's a really good point. Actually, it's interesting because this is, and I want to share this because I want the listeners to know this, because the purpose of this show is not to demonstrate how Lorenzo and I, or how two CROs might agree. We actually want to show disagreements as well, because that's where good ideas come from. So when I did my research, I don't do customer research. I do deconstruction, but in my deconstruction, I actually noticed the emphasis on the fact that it's kid safe, and the fact that kids can use this for juicing, and especially in that video that we talked about higher on the page. And I drew the opposite conclusion of Lorenzo. So I want to actually de-emphasize that point. And this is a great example of, I might be wrong, and this is why we would test, but we have to, I want to draw attention to this, because what happens, guys, is, and we'll actually talk about this in the next section called selling angles. One of the number one mistake marketers make is we assume that our buyer has infinite attention shelf space. So what we do is we do lots of research and we identify 2,000 selling angles or 2,000 benefits. And then we take a page and we, just like with SEO, we just do keyword stuffing. The thing we don't realize is that we have to be able to discriminate and to really prioritize around those selling themes. And that means sometimes you'll make a mistake. So in this case, I decided to go against what Lorenzo's research was. The testing will reveal to us, and that's why, and we don't have the right answers. I mean, I fail all the time, but I decided actually against that kid angle because I didn't think it was compelling. A lot of it has to do with our own circumstances. I don't have children, so I can't relate to it, but this is why we would test it and then we would inject it. So I want to get to that point as well in my section. Okay, so let me just, Lorenzo, should I proceed with my section? I have two more.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Great.
Go ahead.
Great. All right. So let me get to my deconstruction. All right. So we talked about hidden assets, but now I want to actually get to the core of my my sales pitch. I'm going to talk about something called selling angles. And I'm going to talk about the 6 selling angles that we identified. I want to really emphasize on this point. So first of all, let's talk about definitions. What is a selling angle? And Lorenzo, I think that's something that maybe in future episodes, I want you to talk a little bit more about the definitions that you're using for your customer data mining as well, because a lot of it is new to me as well. I know it's very familiar to you because you do so much of it, but we want to be careful about not losing people to jargon.
Yep.
So selling angle, let's talk about what a selling angle is. So essentially I look at the sales pitch that we are constructing is built on top of selling angles. The selling angle informs the things that we want our sales pitch to emphasize. And what we want to do is we want to narrow the number of selling angles that we have to a few core selling angles. Again, we don't want to make a mistake of saying, let's cover 50 points because now you've lost the reader. So a lot of this has to do with us being able to prioritize. So the selling angles that I identified was fast juicers pulverize fruits at incredibly high speeds, not very different from how lawnmowers cut grass. This model does 43 revolutions per minute, which keeps micronutrients and flavors intact. On their product page, they do mention the fact that it does 43 revolutions per minute, but they kind of ended there. And I wanted to really expand on this because I think this is a very core part of their sales, very core part of their selling angle. So we are doing this for we've done a couple of things here. Number one is we recognize that a lot of people that are buying a juicer might already have some kind of a blender or a mixer or something like that at home. The first thing consumers do is they try to find workarounds by using what they already have. So one of the questions they might have in their mind is that, oh, could I make do with what I have at home? And we want to draw a sharp contrast between what they have at home with what our machine does. So we start by talking about the fact that the machine that you probably have at home, without calling it out, it's implied, we say that it probably pulverizes juices. And the word pulverize is negative. It's very intentional choice of words. And then we're trying to use a visual cue of talking about lawnmower because people can relate to what a lawnmower does, right? So we're saying, and then we're saying our solution, which is this. So this is why I call this my primary selling angle. My secondary selling angle or my second selling angle is the fact that now that we sold the buyer on the fact that you should buy a juicer, now we are stuck with the new problem, which is the buyer might say, well, why should I buy your juicer and not some other juicer? So one of the techniques we like to use is to address the problem by saying at first glance, juicers augers, which is the device, which is a part of the juicer that does the masticating to extract the juice. So we're basically saying at first glance, they all look the same. So or may look the same. So we planted a doubt, and we've kind of welcomed the reader to say, oh, wow, they're saying it's the same. And then we say that this patented one endured 14 years of refinement, so it could meet you today. So first of all, we're demonstrating expertise over here. And I want you to pay attention to word choices. We use the word endured. We're almost using a human emotion with an inanimate object. Very intentional choice in copywriting. Another thing I did over here was it said, so it could meet you today. So we've again done the same thing. We are kind of making it sound like it's a human being and it's been waiting for 14 years, so it can meet you today. Again, these are micro improvements, but this is how you construct a sales pitch. And the reason, and okay, so next one is 60% more juice. This is something that they already have emphasized on the page. And this is another point I want to draw over here is that the purpose of selling angles is not to just find new selling angles for the sake of it. We are trying to, sometimes the client has already identified a very strong selling angle. And oftentimes clients actually are very good at that anyway. So I want to use what they have. The next one, and so as we move down these selling angles, they go lower in importance. The next one is, thanks to the safety sensor machine, the machine will not run if everything isn't connected properly. This is something I discovered when I was watching the video. And actually, now that I think about it, it's actually not a strong selling angle. So if in my second iteration, I would actually eliminate the selling angle. And this is the whole point, is that it's not supposed to be cast in stone. The idea is to kind of identify what those selling angles are. The next one is the spinning brush cleans the inside of the chamber and strainer at the same time, which means that it does two things at one time, which prevents clogging. Easy cleanup is a detail we obsess about. One of the theses that I put together in my sales pitch is the fact that people who are new to juicing might be aware of the fact that there's a lot of pulp. We're already saying that our machine draws 60% more juice, which means that there's a lot more pulp that we're creating. And one of the questions I would have is like, what a pain in the butt is it going to be to clean this machine? Like people care about convenience a lot. And so instead of, I wanted to get in front of this. To me, it seemed like something people would care about. So I wanted to like address this up front. And then the final selling angle I'm using is, turns out you need 6,212 micro perforations for silky smooth juice. This actually is something I got from watching the video that we talked about, which is again, not very visible, but I really like this for two reasons. Number one is it clearly demonstrates expertise. It's a very precise number. They didn't say thousands, they said 6,212, which I think builds a lot of credibility with the buyer. And also I really like this aesthetic of silky smooth. I think silky, we call this an aesthetic. So silky smooth is an aesthetic. We don't want to just make a juice. We want to elevate that by saying silky smooth. So those were the six selling angles that I identified. And now I'm just going to go over the ones, and this is the point I want to make here, is that again, marketers fall for this trap of saying, let's come up with as many selling angles as we can. We forget the fact that our buyer has a very limited attention span. So I wanted to show you the ones that I eliminated from my sales pitch, because I want to use all of that real estate I have, attention real estate, to laser focus on the 5, 6 that I selected. So the one I eliminated was the motor noise. One of the things that they mentioned in the video was that the kids will remain sleeping while I'm making the juice. It's a good selling angle, but it's not core. If I had to save if I was in a boat and I had 2 selling angles and boat was going down and I could only save one selling angle, I would not save this one. I don't think this is strong enough. Then they talk about the fact that the motor uses 150 watts. Again, it's a useful, nice to have feature, but I didn't think it was central. So I eliminated it. And I'll talk to you about what this means. The mouth has a forward degree incline for easy insertion. Again, I felt it was fine, but I didn't think it was core, child safety design. Again, because I de-emphasize the children angle, which Lorenzo thinks is important. And by the way, Lorenzo is probably correct. But in my story, I had to de-emphasize it. Hopper design can be attached left and right or right to left, perfect for left and right-handed people. Again, I think it's not enough big use case for me to actually use real estate to communicate this point. So I'm de-emphasizing this. Auger is designed to minimize oxidation. So in the auger section, they talked about the fact that it does 43 revolutions, but they also talked about the fact that it minimizes oxidation. And I realized that I'm going to actually increase the emphasis on the 43 revolutions and talk about juice extraction, because that's my primary selling angle. But in order to do that, I had to minimize the talk about oxidation. Yes, it's possible that some people care about it, but again, we have to make discriminating choices. We can't cover everything. I'm going to stop talking here, but the final thing I want to say over here is that what we then do is, once we've identified those selling angles, we then construct a sales pitch based on those selling angles. And then what we do is we actually create variations of that sales pitch. And what I mean by that is, in a variation, I could de-emphasize some selling angles of the 6 that I shortlisted. I could use a different way of explaining one of the selling angles. I could do lots of variations. So now what you've got is, not only have you identified the selling angles and developed a sales pitch based on that selling angle, you've developed a couple of flavors of that sales pitch based on those same 6 selling angles. So we're not removing the selling angles. We're not doing anything. We're just changing the emphasis on certain elements, and we're using maybe different examples to describe it. And then we put all of that together as an A/B test, A/B/N test, and then run it as a test and see what people respond to. Ultimately, the choice is with the people. So I have finished what I had to say. Lorenzo, now it's all you.
Cool. There's a few things I want to say. It's actually very interesting because it's kind of related to few things that you said. So if you go in my doc,
okay,
there is the section called benefits.
Yeah, just a second. Guys, this is the problem with live shows, that we sometimes need to make some adjustments. Okay.
Yeah, so there's 2 sections. The first one is the benefit, and then one next to it. Oh,
sorry, just a second. Anxiety?
No. The first one, let's look at the benefits one.
Okay.
I want to emphasize, basically the benefits section is all the benefits that customers, again, I just want to remind people that this is straight from the reviews. So it's all customers, people that have bought and used the product. The benefits is basically like the list of benefits that customers have mentioned they got from using the juicer. And I want to point out two things. So the first thing I want to point out is that the first two benefits that got the most volume, so the highest number, the highest percentage, are actually the first two anxieties as well. If you go in the anxiety section, you have easy to clean and extract a lot of juice. And in the anxiety section, the first three, there is price, which is actually it's very, very common in a lot of research projects I've done. Price always comes up, and also like in this case, the price is like $400. So it makes sense that people are like, I'm not sure if I want to spend $400. But the second one is it's too hard to clean. So there's this anxiety when people are actually on the product page and they're looking at the product, they're like, oh, I wonder how difficult it is to clean it. And what's interesting is that it's an anxiety, but also it's a benefit. How easy it is to clean it is a benefit. But what I noticed is that on the product page, there's not a lot of emphasis on this, which again, it's a benefit, but also it's an anxiety. So what I would do is I would actually, simply have a video of how quickly you can clean up the juicer and how easy it is. You can even have a video of a kid cleaning it, which implies that if a kid cleans it up, it's super easy to
Plus it has two benefits, because it also shows the fact that the kid can do the juicing. So
Exactly.
the first point you raised as well.
Makes sense. Yep. And then the other thing, the other benefit / anxiety is extracts a lot of juice. So the benefit is, oh wow, this juicer is great because it extracts a lot of juice. And oftentimes in the reviews, people have mentioned that extracts more juice than other actually juicers that I've used in the past. But that's also an anxiety. People are wondering, are doubting if the juicer actually extracts enough juice. So what I would do in this case is I would actually show the pulp, how much pulp comes out of the juice and how dry the pulp is. Because that means is that if there's a lot of dry pulp, it means that the juice has sucked up all the nutrients in the fruits and the veggies.
And Lorenzo, I think this kind of brings up. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
So I think this again goes back to that whole picture story idea, infographic idea. There's a difference between picture stories and infographics, but the point is that they could actually make this an infographic, and they could actually kind of like have an arrow pointing towards this, and we could say 60% more, because they mentioned that over here, 60% more juice. Why isn't it mentioned over here? There should be an arrow pointing towards this, 60% more juice, and you say 60 because we have 60% more pulp, whatever. But it then ties up with that thing you discovered in the customer research.
100%. There's one last tab I want to show you guys.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
So if you go back to the research section, there is a section called research process. So basically what this tab represents is it represents any mention about what kind of research people have done before buying the product. And there's a few things that I thought were very interesting. A lot of people mentioned, oh, I watched the reviews of the Namawell on YouTube. And then the next two are actually very compelling. When I saw that, I was like, no, this is interesting. So Fully Raw Christina is actually a testimonial on the product page. Yeah, yep, there you go. And the same for Joe Cross. Joe Cross is actually
co-owner.
No. Joe Cross is actually he's done a documentary, a Netflix documentary in 2006, I think, called it was all about like the whole theme of juicing, the importance of juicing. So to me, this is actually two celebrity testimonials. And so what I'm trying to say is that people have been influenced in the buying process from these people, right? From these two influencers. And it's very good that Nama actually shows these two influencers on the product page. But what I would do is I would actually make this a little bit more, I would make it a little bit more prominent because these look like kind of like two testimonials.
Well, more importantly, Lorenzo, I actually did not. So that's very interesting point, because I actually never even watched these videos, because first of all, from a design perspective, it's the play button is not even very clear. You know,
yeah,
it does say
and it's
watch.
not even working. It's not even working. If you click on it, it's not even working.
And the problem is, you know, when I see the word, so they should not use the word review, because review is loaded. It means something very specific. And so I thought this was customer reviews. And so I kind of skipped this and I kind of zeroed in on this, but even this is wrong, because these are not real reviews. The reviews actually start over here. So they're using very confusing terminology. I would actually get rid of this, because I don't think this is, if you already have 3,000 reviews, why are you cherry picking reviews?
Yeah, and it's also that 2080 reviews
is wrong.
Doesn't match with the number of reviews on the top. Yep.
And even over here. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Last thing. Somebody in the I didn't show it in my reviews mining, but somebody mentioned that they really like to be part of the Facebook group that you actually get invited to when you become a Nama customer. And juicing, we didn't really touch on, like, you know, the goal of the juicer is kind of like the way I explain is, it's like a boat that needs to take a person from A to B in the juicing journey. And, you know, something that it's interesting that didn't mention is that the fact that people get invited to the Facebook group. And what I would actually do, I couldn't check out the Facebook group because you need to be a customer in order to be part of that group. But I would want to understand how engagement that Facebook group gets and what people are doing in the Facebook group. My assumption and my hypothesis is that maybe they're sharing their juicing journey, how they were able to go from, you know, kind of like overweight or kind of having some health conditions to healthy and losing weight, because it's something that I would actually want to emphasize on the product page, the fact that they could be going through the juicing journey together with other people, more like in a community angle.
That's a really good point, Lorenzo, because if I think back to the 6 selling angles that I focused on, actually none of them focused on this weight loss. And I'm only now realizing, based on your conversation, that is actually a very good selling angle. And this goes to show that don't think of selling angles as being definitive. I find this when I work with clients also, they overemphasize the selling angles have to be perfect. And the thing is that you will learn iteratively, you will come up with, you will figure it out. So I overlooked the weight loss piece, but now that I've spoken to Lorenzo and I understand this whole Facebook group thing, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's a really good, strong selling angle. And so in my next version of the test, I would maybe remove one of my selling angles and I would add this back in, because remember, you don't want to have 20 selling angles. So I would have to get rid of something. And I think that there is one selling angle of mine that is very weak. I would remove that and I would add something into it. But this is, you're right. I think that's a really good point, because ultimately this kind of goes back to, this is a classic jobs to be done kind of thing, because the job that the user is trying to get done is not to buy a machine. They're hiring the machine to lose weight.
Yep, correct.
Or be healthy.
Yeah, and the Facebook group obviously also works as a social proof as well, right? Yeah. So it's not just, you know, you're going to be part of the community, but it's like, oh, there's other people, other customers that have bought in the past that you will be kind of like engaging with. I would say this is it from my side, Rishi.
I think we've covered everything. Again, I think we ended up having a 1-hour session. We want to guys shorten the length as we move forward. But as you can see, there's a lot that was covered. And I think one final, and I want Lorenzo to share his thoughts as well, but one of the things that I want to kind of draw attention to is that I think one of the superpowers of a CRO or a marketer in general is the ability to prioritize. So you'll notice if you actually watch the video, if you start making notes, you'll notice that like 75 ideas were shared, but you really need to narrow down to 4 or 5 ideas and start working on those from that perspective. I think sometimes it can be overwhelming to, like, for me, it's overwhelming to see that how much research Lorenzo did. But the takeaway for me is to say, okay, Lorenzo, what is the one key thing? For me, the key takeaway from the research was, for example, the fact that 23%, I believe, of people were using this for nut extraction. I thought that was something very useful. Also, the fact that there was anxiety around how much juice comes out of it. Those are 2 things I would take. Even though Lorenzo talked about 20 things, the idea is not to action on all 20 things, right?
Yeah.
I would take those 2 and I would just build on it. And then maybe in a future test, I would kind of maybe emphasize other details. Same is true for the selling angles that I focused on, or the things that I did with deconstruction. Just focus in on 1 or 2 things and then see if those 1 or 2 things are strong enough and can stand on their own for testing, and then let the testing guide you through the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, like, obviously, the way I look at the research is almost like the MOs to start your testing program, right? It's almost like the foundation of it. 100% agree with you when you say like prioritization.